Hey guys, today on the channel I wanted to try something different. Instead I'm going to show you how I go about platinuming a game, and today we're going to play Dark Souls 2. And at this time I have 382 hours in it, so hopefully I'm pretty decent at this game. But I should mention I forgot to record the beginning of the game, so I started off at the Dragon Rider fight. Other than that, let's roll the footage. Alright, so picking up where I just left off, the Dragon Rider fight didn't go so well for me. I died the first time, and this is me going back for a second attempt. I go over there, grab my souls, and up there we go. See, and apparently 382 hours doesn't make you very good at this game. But instead of actually taking on the Dragon Rider, I decided to homeward bone out, go back to Majula, grab some stones, and then come back to take him on again. This is the fight where I beat him, so I'm just going to go ahead and let this play. And that's the end of the fight. Thankfully, Dragon Rider is not really that bad, and plus if you've ever played Dark Souls 1, it's pretty similar to the Ornstein fight. He has a very similar moveset, which is why a lot of people think that's him. This is Targlay, but he is the owner of one of the covenants that you have to get to later in the game. So we just kind of stop by, visit him, go back to Majula. I level up my intelligence to 8 so that I can talk to an NPC later. Spend my souls so I don't lose them, and then I go to No Man's Wharf, where I end up going down to the dock and meeting this guy over here, which is who you need to talk to with the 8 intelligence. This is Carhillion. We have to buy a couple spells off of him. I don't actually have a Pyromancy Flame. I don't know why I keep trying to check it there. And then I just check out his inventory. But these are the spells you're going to have to buy off of him. It'll be Shockwave. And then I'm double checking off of the list next to me so that I make sure I buy the correct spells, because I don't really have a whole lot of souls in the early game. So I try to make sure what I'm buying is what I actually need. Some of these spells you can pick up later on in the game, and that's actually what the guides usually say you do. I am using a guide for reference because I'm not totally sure where I need. And then I summon Lucatiel to fight the boss in this area. I can't remember what they're called, but I'm sure I'm going to see it in a second anyway. And then Lucatiel has a bit of an issue with clearing the area, so I clear the area before we go and fight the Flexile Sentry. You'll see Lucatiel come in second after me. You have to have Lucatiel survive 3 fights, and No Man's Wharf is the first area where you meet her. Unfortunately, I didn't include that in the footage, but she is standing in a shack. I do one good attempt on Flexile Sentry, so this is my one and only fight of him. Lucatiel and I win this one. But I'll just let this play out. Alright, making sure Lucatiel doesn't die, I help her finish off the Flexile Sentry, and after that one, I do some cringy emote, but if you watch all the other Dark Souls YouTubers, everyone does some kind of emote, and I feel like everybody took the good ones, so I speed this part up. I'm just going to be running around, and then I go back to Carhillion to buy some more spells off of him now that I've got a few more souls, because I don't really want to come back to this area. So I try to buy all the spells that I can off of somebody when I meet them, so that I know that that NPC is done, and I can move on with the guide. I also talk to him so that he goes back to Majula for the Gathering of Exiles achievement, which is to have all the NPCs at Majula by the end. I pick up Urn and Great Heavy Soul Arrow. I think I do not buy Great Soul Arrow. Okay. And then I go back past the Flexile Sentry boss fight where I grab the Fireball spell, which you need as a Pyromancy. You don't need the Pyromancy Flame, but it just comes with it. Then I activate the Dial, teleporting us to Lost Bastille. I like this cutscene, so I just let it play. Here I am on the dock at Lost Bastille, and then I go up the elevator and grab the bonfire. I just sped this part up because nothing interesting happens here. We're just going to grab a bonfire, and then we're going to teleport back to Majula and continue a different way. So, after I go back to Majula, I go back to the Cardinal Tower. I did not record the fight with the first giant, or the last giant, rather. And this is the Pursuer. So, this was my first fight with him. I unfortunately do die due to just bad, poor rolling in my account. And I go back, I think I beat him on my second try. So, I go back there after dying to him last time. I didn't do anything else. I didn't grab any more life gems. And then I beat him second try. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this footage roll. As you can see there, an actual trick is to roll into their weapons whenever you're going to dodge, and that makes sure that your iframes are lined up with the weapons, because Dark Souls 2, your iframes are at the beginning of your roll, not in the middle of it, like I feel like in most of the other games. Alright, so I beat the Pursuer's second try. As you can see in my fight, that I try to sidestep a lot of his moves instead of dodging as little as possible, because if I dodge, then I lose distance on him, and that might be a hit or two. Another trick that I'm sure a lot of people are going to say is that if you go and use the ballistas, then you can just shoot him once or twice with those. I just didn't parry him and do that way. I instead fought him regularly. Moving on, this is Lucatiel, so we meet her in Lost Bastille. We have to exhaust her dialogue real fast to get her to spawn for our next boss fight.
I'm sorry.
I exhaust her dialogue and then just keep talking to her because I just like to waste my own time. After that, I go down the stairs and I unlock Macduff's workshop so that I can get the Craftsman Hammer, which is actually the weapon I'll be using for this playthrough. I love that weapon. It's so good, so strong, especially in the early game too. So how you get the Craftsman Hammer is you light a torch, and then you walk into Macduff's workshop, and you light this torch, which causes him to move from the chest you see him sitting on. And then you rest the bonfire so he moves. Then I go back in there, and I open up all the chests, and I get all his loot. And he's sitting there. And then you have to give him the Dull Ember. And there's an achievement that I'll be doing later for him, which is spend 14,000 souls. And that gives us the Smith for Life achievement, which actually unlocks his equipment. But I didn't do that in this episode because I just don't have the souls to spare. Apparently it has to be upgrades or infusions, not purchasing items, so... And the Craftsman Hammer I obtained from that large chest that was sitting in the middle there. Back to Majula. Leveling up again. I level my strength so that I can use the Craftsman Hammer. You need 20 strength. I just fall a little short, but the neat thing about strength is if you're two-handing it, you don't have to meet the strength requirement. I go back to the Lost Bastille to get the Fragment Branch of Yore to progress the game, and this Pursuer shows up at this chest, so I just kind of beat him real fast. Not nearly as hard as the first time we take on the Pursuer, but there are like 3 or 4 of these guys in the game just throughout. I dodge pretty poorly there, like I said, dodge into their weapons. I just don't really learn that lesson. And I try to sidestep this. So obviously I beat the second Pursuer, and I grab the Fragrant Branch of Yore after I light it. Get another Twinkling Titanite. I'm going to need that for upgrading the Craftsman Hammer later. And so the Fragment Branch of Yore in this game just allows you to unfreeze stone people. And then I go back to Macduff to give him the Dull Ember and upgrade my weapon. Actually, I don't think I upgrade my weapon here. Rather, I upgrade it in the Smith and Majula. I lied. I do upgrade my weapon here, and then I go and I take on the Rune Sentinels. So this is a 3v1 boss fight. It's actually not that bad. So I do this in one shot. This boss fight's pretty easy. I'm doing pretty good damage as well. But if you take on Yahim on the ledge as soon as you walk in through the door, then the other 2 do not start. You can see them standing behind Yahim on another ledge. They do tend to fall off a lot, which is fine. They'll jump back up. Just make sure you're not standing where they jump up, otherwise they'll hit you, just like Yahim tries to there. So we finish off Yahim, and then we wait until the other Pursuer jumps up. I'm sorry, the Sentinel, not Pursuer. But the second one will jump up. I think this ends up being Reese. So I pound on him a little bit until the third one jumps up, and then when all the other 2 are on this ledge, that's when you jump down and start using the arena. So we get a couple good smacks on Alicia, not Reese, and then we jump down when Reese jumps up. But I do this boss fight first try. I don't think these Sentinels are very hard. They're very manageable. They don't usually come at you more than 1 or 2 at a time, especially if you kill Yahim first. And if you can remember which one's which, then you can easily finish off one, and then it'll just become a 1v1 boss fight. But I'm going to go ahead and let this footage roll while we finish beating the last Sentinel. Alright, so after that I sped up the footage a little bit, but what's going on is you have to go and unlock a bunch of hidden doors. They're secret doors. You just go and hit the action button on them. So we have to go get this spell called Hush. It's behind one of the secrets in the Rune Sentinel area. After that I go grab the bonfire, and then I teleport back to Majula and grab a Fragment Branch of Yore. Go back to the Lost Bastille. Here I need a Ferrous Lockstone. I don't know that I don't have one, so I come down here, I beat the Pursuer real fast, and then I find out I don't have a Ferrous Lockstone. You need one to go and beat the Belfry Luna area of the game. Behind that Lockstone is the Gargoyle boss fight and a Covenant that you need for the achievement. I'll just have to do that later whenever I actually have a Ferrous Lockstone. Another piece of Twinkling Titanite that I'm going to need for upgrading my hammer later. I'm sure everybody's upset, but I didn't realize that there was a chest there. I go to grab the Bastille Key, and I accidentally roll off the edge, which was not my finest move. So I go back, I should have grabbed my souls there before I tried to roll off again, but I go over here very carefully, and I grab the Bastille Key, which I'll need for opening some doors later. Then I continue in the Lost Bastille area until I get to Strayed, who is frozen in stone. That's why I bought the Fragment Branch of Yore to use on him, so that I can trade boss souls for weapons and spells, which we'll need for the achievements. Alright, so I go in here and I grab the bonfire, and then I talk to Strayed, buy a couple spells. And I trade one soul with him. You have to learn his gesture, Mock. Alright, so after buying all his spells, I farm the mummies for a little bit more souls, and then I buy the last spell that I needed off of him, and I continue in the Lost Bastille area, cross the bridge, grab that bonfire, and I go down the elevator. So there's a Rune Sentinel in this area that you have to take on. So the next boss is going to be the Lost Sinner, which is probably one of my favorite bosses. I think she's just the coolest, that she's locked up. And you'll see in the cutscene, she kind of goes crazy and she fights you with this big-ass sword. Very mobile, very agile. But we have to get Lucatiel to the boss fight, and the Rune Sentinel would just destroy Lucatiel. So we have to kill the Rune Sentinel, and then there's some mummies in this area. Unfortunately, the Rune Sentinel in this area actually has as much health as he does normally. It feels like, but I'm just using a really weak bow, trying to cheese him. So while I finish up the Rune Sentinel, I just want to go over what you missed in the beginning game because I forgot to record it, and this seems like a pretty good time to do it. So you have to go through, you have to grab a gesture from a fallen soldier in Majula. I did not record that. And then you have to go to the Cardinal Tower, talk to Melentia, the hag, and talk to her, tell her to go back to Majula. That's the lady I bought the infinite stones off of to heal, the healing stones. And then you have to go and beat the Dragon Rider in the tower. Talk to Lisha. She is a lady who sells miracles, and then you have to buy a lot of her miracles. Almost all of them, actually. Now that I've beaten the Rune Sentinel, though, I summon Lucatiel, and we continue on. I grab a couple items here. The Blossom Kite Shield. This actually improves stamina. I end up equipping it later. And I make a mistake here, actually. I summon Lucatiel, but I don't kill the other enemies in the area. And so that causes Lucatiel to lose a lot of health, which ends up biting me later. So there's a mummy off to the right. You might have seen him stand up. Yep, you can see him at the bottom of the stairs there. I killed this one, but Lucatiel has already taken a ton of damage now from that mummy, and she doesn't even try to fight the mummy. Instead, she keeps trying to run towards me. I think it would have been fine if I would have stopped what I was doing and saved her from the beginning, but I let her take a little too much damage. And now, she's probably not going to make the center fight, so we walk into the center. I'm going to let this cutscene play because I think it's just my favorite. I just think this boss is so cool. You know, she gets a bug in her eye, and then she gets up and she just beats the shit out of you. Well, beats the shit out of Lucatiel. So I actually lose my first fight because Lucatiel dies, and then I try to homeward bone out, but it doesn't really go that well for me either. So I go to sit down, and she stabs me in the back, which I don't want to heal because I don't want to waste the healing items, and she makes me pay for that as well. See, I consider using a life gem, and then I think, okay, maybe I can just bait it out. I cannot. I end up having to go back through the same shit. I kill the Rune Sentinel again, with my hammer this time. Then I summon Lucatiel, making sure to kill the mummy before I summon Lucatiel. And then I make the foolish mistake of opening one of the doors, which lets out one of the Hide Knights from the tower area before. I thought he was going to explode there, so I back up. I one-shot him, and then I go back up, making sure to clear the area before I take Lucatiel this time. Scared that she's going to take too much damage and I'm going to have to reset the fight again, which might cause me to die. Also, in this game, you have to use a human effigy to heal, or rather to return to human status, and there's only so many of them. I think I have 12 or 13 at this point. So I try to use a bow against him. I realize that's not going to work. I try to backstab him there, but the game just doesn't like it, doesn't register it. Somehow I get the backstab off on an incline, get him down, and finish him off with a hammer stab. Alright, so now I'm pretty safe to go and summon Lucatiel and carry her back to the fight without really losing anything. She shouldn't lose any health, and if Lucatiel doesn't lose that health like last time, then I think the center fight's going to be a lot easier. So, I speed this up, we're just running back to the fight. She gets stuck for some reason on the ladder, so I have to go back to her and get her, and she falls down. I don't know what's going on with the pathing at this point. I just walk back in her area, and boom, she falls down. Walk back over, and the cutscene isn't going to play because I've already triggered this fight. I make sure to go and check my loot spots, but I forgot that I've already gotten them. So I walk through the fog door, and I take on the center again. This is the second attempt on this fight. You cannot lock onto the center due to it being dark in here. Because I grabbed the Bastille Key, I could light the fire in this area, but for that I'd need a flame butterfly or to carry a torch the whole way here, which I did not. So, this is actually the fight where Lucatiel and I win against the Lost Sinner, so I'm just gonna let the footage roll. I start to get a little nervous at this point because Lucatiel's tanking a lot of damage, and apparently she's forgotten how to use a shield in this boss fight, even though she did the first time I used her. And so I start trying to get pretty aggressive with my hits, which causes me to get hit a little bit more. But in the end, we end up beating this. That's one of 4 great souls beaten, and so we get the Soul of the Lost Sinner. I grab the chest, which gives me a Fragment Branch of Yor and an Elizabeth Mushroom. But really what we want is the Yor branch. I go ahead and use this primal bonfire in the back and teleport back to Medulla with it. So after that, I'm just trying to take a look at what spells I have left, what spells I need to buy still, and kind of where I'm at on the guide. So I have all the sorceries, I'm missing a few miracles, and I think the flame spells and the hex spells are coming up in the next areas. So I have to go over here and I talk to Lisha and I buy a spell off of her, and I get her to move the path so I can go to Huntsman's Copse. I do end up buying that lightning spell off of her later because I can't find it in the area. The guide says that it's somewhere, and I look, but I think the area where the spell is too hard to reach, so I end up just coming back here and buying it from her for 6,000 souls. So Lisha takes 2,000 souls. If you kill Lisha, then that move is actually free. Go through Huntsman's Copse, grab the bonfire, and talk to Falcon. Falcon requires you to have 8 faith and 8 intelligence to talk to him. He sells hexes, which are a hybrid between intelligence and faith. I buy a couple hexes off of him, but eventually I will just have to come back to him because I don't have enough souls to purchase everything that he has, like Resonant Weapon that I couldn't buy for 4,000, and I buy Resonant Flesh, which is the rest of my souls. Now I grab the bonfire in Huntsman's Copse, and I continue in the area. Continue on, I grab the bonfire under the bridge. I go back up the bridge for an item called the Token of Fidelity. It's sitting on that body right there. I miss my first jump, and so I end up dying. But what you have to do for this is just sprint right at it, and see, I miss. I try rolling onto it, but I didn't make it. I almost fall over there, but I need the Token of Fidelity, and I get a Ferrous Lockstone, which we actually need the Lockstone for later as well. The Token of Fidelity is to be given to Tarklay, who is the guy that runs the Blue Sentinel, I think, Covenant, right after the Dragon Rider boss fight. But he will not accept you in until you get the Token of Fidelity, or you help a player online. But right now, Dark Souls 2 servers aren't working. So I grab that thing, the lever, and then I come back over here, I beat this knight, and there's a spell in this hut that we need, which is on this body right here, Soul Spear. That's one of the sorceries we need for the All Sorceries achievement. And then in here we get a Sublime Bone Dust, which just upgrades our flasks to heal more. So, continuing on across the bridge through Huntsman's Copse, then we meet Merciless Rowena, which is an invader. She's an AI invader. Like I said, Dark Souls 2 servers aren't working currently. I can't do online PvP or PvE, and the game won't connect to the servers on the main menu anyway. So we beat her, and then we grab the Undead Lockaway Key, which opens up this to get to Wandering Creighton, which is the quest line for Pate. So we exhaust his dialogue, we get the fist pump gesture, and then he'll end up disappearing after. And then we go inside the cave near the Skeleton Lord's boss fight, go past it, go under the waterfall, and then go into this cave section behind it. And we are here to get a spell called Combustion. So we go over here. You don't have to fight the skeletons, they actually revive, so there's really no reason to at this point. But you have to come over here and kill this lady. She's standing on top of the Combustion spell. So I go ahead and I grab that there with 3 Titanite shards. And then I go towards the Undead Purgatory, which is actually the next boss fight area, where we have to take on the Undead Chariot. This is my first attempt trying to get into the Undead Purgatory. It does not go very well. I come over here, I sit for a few minutes, I let those guys go away from me, and then I jump across again, and I go and try to take on this guy with this huge sword. Well, it turns out that he's got a little bit more length than my weapon does, and he doesn't really stagger that much, so I go for a backstab there. It doesn't go very well for me, and I die. So, I come back to the Undead Purgatory, and instead of trying to take on these guys and waiting, I just go right into the boss door. I take a ton of damage here, and I'm pretty close to dying. I'm really lucky that they didn't smack me while I was trying to go through the boss door, but I knew once I got on the other side I could heal. So instead, that's what I do. I speed this part up because it's not really that interesting. You have to wait for the chariot to run by, and there's skeletons spawning, so your goal is to find those summoner ladies and kill them, and then you can either let the chariot try to take on the skeletons, or you can just kill them. But after you kill the summoner lady, the skeletons do not respawn anymore. And then you just have to keep rinse and repeat until you get to this gate that you drop to kill him. I put on alluring skulls so that I can throw them later and attract all the skeletons away from me. More skeletons, and then there's another witch lady up here on my right. Let the chariot help me out here a little bit. Almost get hit here. You can actually roll through the chariot if your timing is good enough. I don't feel confident in my rolling at this point in the game. I haven't played Dark Souls 2 in so long, so I don't even try. And so the way that you get the boss, the Executioner's Chariot, to actually fight you instead of running around in circles, you drop the gate, and that causes the horse to lose his chariot, and you have to take on the horse. So this boss fight's not really that hard. I do it my first try. The skeletons kind of try to gank me in this fight. I just beat this one skeleton down before I continue fighting the boss. The boss does one move here in a second. I did think I could walk past that attack, but turns out I can't. But the boss does one move in this fight that I have never seen before, and it's this move where he takes his head and one shoots right, one shoots left. I end up getting hit by it, but other than that, I don't think this boss fight's very hard. You just easily dodge to the left. Don't go behind him or else he'll kick you in the head like a good horse. I don't know what was going on there, but you can see some mist kind of goes by his butt, and it kind of looks like he farted there. This move is the one I'm talking about. I have never seen him do that before, where he closes in on the middle like that. I wasn't ready for it, and I wasn't really sure where to roll, so I just didn't. There we go. So we finished Executioner's Chariot. Past just killing all the bosses, we actually need to come up here and talk to this short little gremlin guy. This is Techi Ren, I think is what the guide said. He doesn't really say his name, but he's the owner of a covenant. We can't actually get into it until we get a Token of Spite, and I don't have one currently, so I just talked to him, exhaust his dialogue, and I go back to Targlay to join this covenant. We need to buy a spell off of Targlay. We buy Heavenly Thunder. I don't need a Mitt Force, we already got that one earlier. And then I go back to where Creighton was, run back through the cave system there, and go back into fight the Skeleton Lords. Don't use any Alluring Skulls. That's a speedrunner strat, though, if you throw some Alluring Skulls. The way that this fight works is that you walk in there, 3 bosses, you beat one, and his soul kind of exits his body and goes into the ground, which summons a bunch of skeletons. Depending on which one you beat, left to right, it changes what kind of skeletons he spawns. So one summons armored skeletons, one of the skeleton lords summons 2 bone wheel skeletons, which are the absolute menaces of this boss fight. They're easily the hardest enemy in this boss fight. Harder than the boss is harder than these guys. And especially in a gang fight, you just kind of have to watch around. Because there's going to be so many moves being tossed at you the whole time. I kind of just guess which skeleton is next. And end up picking the right one. So this one summons a bunch of regular skeletons. And that means that I saved the worst for last. So what you want to do is clear the entire arena before you try fighting another one. I get hit a lot by these skeletons. They don't really hit that hard, luckily. So you can easily just life gem this damage. But It stuns you out of your attacks a lot, which causes the fight to take a little bit longer. So we finish off the last skeleton horde. He's going to summon 2 bone wheel skeletons, and then I finish those off and we win the fight. First try, not a very hard boss. After that, you exit the boss arena, you pull this lever, it drops a bridge down, and you go across, and we enter Harvest Valley, which is the next area of the game. Here we have to grab a couple more spells and talk to another NPC for the Gathering of Exiles area, or achievement. Run across this bridge, there's a bonfire across a poison pool. We grab that before we continue. This is the NPC I mentioned. She's an ore stone traveler. She came here to mine, but she sells a lot of really good ores. We end up buying Dead Again and Soul Appease off of her. And then I don't need the thing she's selling yet, but she does sell a lot of stones later in the game. The more bosses you defeat. Next, we're just going to exhaust her dialogue, so she goes back to Majula. And then we continue on through the area until we hit the next bonfire where all these pots are. After that, I go into this area where there's a bunch of giants, and I jump down because I need to grab a chameleon. But unfortunately, that was on the last body I found, and I got poisoned while I was down there, which caused me to die 2 seconds away from the bonfire. I exit out of the bonfire, end up killing both of these Titanite bugs. There is a third, but most of the time you're not going to get all 3 in one run because they fall into the holes, or you fall into the holes. Continue on, and I end up finding the Altar of Sunlight, which gives me the Praise the Sun emote, and you have to maximize this covenant by getting sunlight medals. I don't have any right now. I restore my humanity here thinking that I needed it, and then I equip armor right after that, and then I end up getting killed by this mannequin, because I didn't know he was there. But I restored my humanity thinking I needed it to talk to Lucatiel, but Lucatiel is actually not being summoned in this area, so I don't need my humanity. I end up wasting another humanity in this life, too. These guys, for some reason, will just walk through these pots, causing them to take poison, so it's easier to just let them do that themselves. And then end up coming in here where I find Lucatiel. I also am going to get poisoned here, but I speed this up a little bit. We're just talking to her, finishing her dialogue, and then warping back to the last bonfire so I don't die of poison damage. After that, I return to Majula. I upgrade my hammer again, and then I go back to Harvest Valley where I continue to fight the next area boss. So, enter here. This is going to be the Covetous Demon. I do this on my first try. I don't think this boss is very hard. I think the community pretty much agrees that this is one of the easiest bosses in the game. He doesn't really do a whole lot other than swing at his front. He does have an attack where he beats his tail around and slaps his head off the ground. The only one that you really have to watch out for on his side, though, is when he rolls onto his side, which is pretty telegraphed. All his moves are very slow, pretty easy to dodge. I think I only get hit maybe once or twice in this entire boss fight. And it's right here where he hits me with his tail when he rolls onto his side, and then he'll just roll over where I end up. Actually, he does that move where he hits me again. This at no point felt like I was going to die, though. So I beat Covetous Demon first try, and I continue on to the next bonfire. Alright, so this is where I'm going to end the video, guys. If you guys are enjoying this content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.